Hi, Kat.
Hi, Micki.
We are Cat and Mouse Astrology, and we're here to welcome you to the new moon in October 2021. It's going to be an interesting moon, isn't it?
Yes.
I think it is. And I'm going to share our screen. Yay. Just like that. To take a look at it. Can you see that?
Yep.
Oh, good. I like that. Now it's a little large, but I'll take it down. So we've got some interesting things going on. It's a new moon in Libra at 13 degrees. It's maybe good for stamina because it's right conjunct Mars. So the sun is conjunct Mars in Libra, and we've got this really interesting stellium between Mars, the sun, and the moon with this new moon. So it looks like it might provide an opportunity for a healthy, balanced way to move forward, being in Libra and being a new moon. Libra being balanced, new moon being new beginnings, and stamina for the Mars, and healthy because it's opposite Chiron in Aries.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What do you think of that? That's pretty cool, isn't it?
It's beautiful. I feel like it's going to bring a clarity of thought and possibly purpose for moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like that. A real clarity of moving forward with purpose. And it is, within the stellium does include Mercury. So there is thought involved in this. This might be a good opportunity for strategic thinking.
Right.
With Mars and Mercury in Libra, giving us this very interesting opportunity for making something happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Libra being the air sign, which made me think of clarity of thought.
Exactly. So,
Signs are for our mental capabilities.
right. And also justice.
Yeah.
There's kind of a, health doesn't always refer to physical health. This could refer to, health in a larger, more metaphysical way, having to do with more than just one person because of the configuration with Jupiter in Aquarius. So that makes me think of, Jupiter is expanding, groups of people. I'm going to scroll back up here a little bit. This green sort of refers to the magnifying glass of Jupiter, helping us maybe review messages, that Mercury. And those messages seem to be tied in very much with this new moon. It's giving us a lot of, like you say, clarity, as it has to do with perhaps justice for the people.
Yeah.
Can I go that far?
We can hope. We can hope we're going to go that far.
Yeah,
It's also that Mercury's in a square to Pluto.
exactly. I didn't put that on there, but it continues to be in a square to Pluto.
Yeah.
It's still within 4 degrees. It's been there for quite some time because Mercury's in retrograde, and Pluto, of course, is so slow it's not moving practically. And it's also, well, Pluto just went direct.
Yay.
So Pluto is essentially standstill. Mercury is essentially standstill. So we have these two in this kind of long-term formation. Long-term meaning a couple of weeks.
Yeah, long term for Mercury. Yeah.
Long-term for Mercury, yeah, giving us a big look at deep, dark Capricornian structures.
Right. And the wealth from the deep.
And the what?
The wealth from the deep,
The wealth from the deep. Good. Yeah. I'm thinking family history and ancestry, and we talked about this before, maybe the positive things that we can pull from our roots that we want to keep for the future.
Well, and even if that Chiron is highlighting a wound from the past,
Yeah,
that in itself can be valuable to have that highlighted, because when you can see the wound, then you can access the healing. If
yeah,
you're
very
not
good.
willing to see the wound, then you're never going to heal from it.
Exactly. And there is an exposing of this Pluto just because of that whole stellium. It includes the new moon itself,
Mm-hmm.
which is providing some, enlightenment as it has to do with those things of Pluto's nature, those deep,
Yeah.
dark things we may be unearthing in the area of Capricorn, in the area of our government. It's one of the things Capricorn stands for, uh, in the area of things that we strive for. And of course, Pluto is just about to be a return. The United States Pluto return is coming upon us shortly.
Ah,
So I believe that that's this coming 2022 in summer, but I don't know off the top of my head that the Pluto return is exact.
yeah. And what would a Pluto return mean? Because most people never see a Pluto return. Like we deal with Pluto squares
Good point.
in our
Because it's
30s or 40s, but
right. It's a 200 and some odd year life. 200. I'll mess it up by saying more than 200-year cycle.
yeah,
And
and
the
it's
last
elliptical, so it's weird.
right, and the last time we had the United States was formed under a Pluto configuration, I believe was Pluto Uranus, and that's what gave us, the Revolutionary War and how we broke away from the king.
Mm,
So there's something very much about um, the transformation of Pluto, especially here as it refers to government, and then as now, as it refers to breaking away from confining governments with authoritarian rule, as it has to do with Uranus.
mm-hmm.
So there are some people some astrologers, Rick Levine is one who goes into quite a lot of depth of the history of the Pluto-Uranus cycle and talks about it in relation to, for example, the French Revolution and the American Revolution and other really revolutionary times in our history. But we were born under a revolutionary astrological configuration, the United States,
Right.
and we're coming up to another point on the astrological wheel, the place where time and space converge. Right, that's what we're looking at with the astrological wheel, is where time and space converges. This calendar shows us that we're coming back to that same configuration, and we'll have to deal with those same kinds of ideals again
Right.
in a different way because it's a different time.
Mm-hmm.
But I do recommend Rick Levine for looking at this in more depth than I can give it, because that's about my level of depth for this. But it's very interesting what we're coming into as both as a nation and of course individually, as we each go through our own Plutonian transformations. What I like is the Jupiter trine with the Pluto square.
Yeah, that seems really beneficial.
It does.
Like it seems like a square to a Pluto square has a lot of potential. Like the change of the square has a lot of positive potential to it. And then add on Jupiter to it, and it's just seems like a good omen.
It does. Again, it feels like with the Mars Pluto configuration, which I have not drawn on here, which would be a red line there between that pink circled Pluto and the red
Mm-hmm.
circled Mars Sun Moon.
Right.
There's a line between those two, which would be 90 degrees, which would be a square, and that blue line represents that trine, that 120 degrees, and which is a signification of ease and
Mm-hmm.
maybe enjoyment and pleasure, and especially with Jupiter there. And so, just like you've just said, I kind of imagine that with the transformation of things going on in the government, it's possible for the people in Aquarius to have a big benefit as Jupiter now moving forward, we're about to move forward to go stationary direct. It's going to take us to a more positive place.
Because
I'm
that
hopeful.
trine is even bigger.
I'm sorry?
That trine is even bigger because there's a trine between the black moon is in Gemini.
Yeah.
So we have kind of a loose grand trine between Mars and the sun and the moon and the black moon in Gemini and Jupiter in Aquarius.
And isn't that interesting with the black moon and its unknown factor? You know, there's, I mean, what I think of when I see this, you know, in the sign of Aquarius, Jupiter about to be very powerful as it turns direct to go back into Pisces. It's a sign of rulership, an exaltation, and from Aquarius. So it's in Aquarius, the sign of the people. And it makes me think of the infrastructure bill. And, you know, getting things like, you know, how many people would get new, better jobs if there were roads being worked on right now, or bridges being worked on right now, or airports being built, or, you know, any kind of infrastructure, including, you know, internet infrastructure that we don't need. I mean, named any that we don't need, because we need them all. And all those people that would be put to work by those jobs, and then how that work that they would do would benefit everybody. You know, I know people in rural areas that don't have internet.
Right. I've been there.
Yeah.
A
So
little bit of services.
that's a huge positive change for the people to not just have the jobs, but then to have the change that the job brings, the transformation that those jobs bring. That I can't help but be hopeful. But with Black Moon, we see that there's a big unknown. And without naming names or diving into politics very far, we don't know what the outcome of the infrastructure bill is going to be. There's a big dun dun dun, maybe it won't happen. You know, so there is still a factor here where that square with Pluto maybe is, you know, still dredging things up that we have to deal with in order to move forward in the positive way.
Right.
So it seems like a pretty simple chart, but there's a lot going on here. I'm going to pull down a little bit, just kind of taking a look at this in a little different way. Again, we've got the moon conjunct the sun at 13 degrees of Libra, and we've got a conjunction as well with Mars, and a loose conjunction, at least by sign, with Mercury. And a question could be, what's beginning in the Libra area of your life? This is all going on in Libra.
Or what are you coming back to?
Beautiful. Yeah, exactly. What are you coming back to?
Still in retrograde.
Right. And with everything now, we've got a huge sky that's been in retrograde motion with all the outer planets in retrograde, just now slowing down to stop and pause and then move forward again. So we're really at a big, major transformational pause, I think. So I think looking at what's beginning, what's starting anew, what's come back to your life. And this may all impact us all until September a year from now. Long term.
Oh, these are long-term cycles.
These are long-term cycles, especially with, I believe it's next October that we have the final Uranus Saturn square.
Oh, yeah.
So we've got one more coming up in December that we're moving towards. And then there is a final one. We're not done with it until the end of 2022. So we've got, again, this new moon in Libra coming up here on the 6th in a couple days. This speaks to new beginnings, fresh starts, beginning of a phase. And it really gets into ideas of relationship and negotiation, balance, diplomacy, problem solving. With Mars there, that adds a lot of energy and passion. It could add a lot of gas.
Hmm.
It could, help with action. It could also create reaction.
Yeah. It's
So
like, which level of frequency are you going to operate on?
exactly. And
Reactive or responsive?
Mars impacts people differently depending on, of course, where it is in your chart. And, we could be dealing with some Martian energy, some martial energy.
Mm-hmm.
Even if we're not feeling Martian ourselves. That sounded strange, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So it could be stamina to negotiate new initiatives in a balanced way or towards a compromise, a harmony. It could be that.
Yeah.
It could also be angry disagreements or risk taking.
Yeah.
Maybe some combination of all three. We could agree finally to do some risk taking. I don't know.
Or your anger and conflict could lead to some sort of balance.
Exactly. That's possible too. I think one thing we've talked about here, over the last many months as we've done these astrology reviews, is how bringing things into the open helps, as you said earlier, expose and heal.
Mm-hmm.
And Mars has been a major player since March of 2020.
Yeah.
So we have Mars now. I'm going to come back up here again for a second. Excuse me. Not COVID. We have Mars in Libra opposite where the whole crap started last year.
Right.
So we had Mars like for 6 freaking months in Aries last year, back and forth, square Saturn. And it was a lot of unpleasantness for, I think, a whole lot of people.
Yeah.
And now we have some sort of a reflection of this with Mars now in Libra opposite where it was, and the new moon giving us a fresh start. Mars is a 2-year cycle.
Mm-hmm.
So, when we look back to March, we're only looking back part of the way. If you go all the way back to what was going on in your life in October of 2019, then we go back to the beginning of this cycle.
Mm.
And keep in mind, October of 2019, I think that's when COVID really was out there getting started, right?
Getting started then, yes.
Right, and maybe even earlier, but definitely they were having doctors exposed and getting sick and making comments in China by October of 2019. So that being the beginning of this cycle, but also the beginning of other cycles, again, in our personal lives, as Mars begins the energy for a whole new process, a whole new 2-year start of whatever we're planning to do. So looking at those 2-year cycles can be really helpful on an individual level to say, hey, where am I going to go for the next 2 years?
Right.
And this has got to be a little personal for me because it's right on my ascendant. So I'm going to have some changes, I believe, in my personal, way I interact with the world one-on-one. And one thing I'm doing, which I think fits with this, this configuration personally for myself, is I'm taking that Mars and the Sun to the gym. I'm going to put that martial energy in my first house into building muscle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Instead of being combative with others, I think I'm probably going to benefit more if I go to the gym.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'll have to start a debate team or something.
Okay, wait. So if this is all happening near my descendant, how do I interpret that?
So for me, this is in my personal house. For you, it's in other people. So you're dealing with other people who the spotlight is on their Martian qualities.
Oh. Oh.
Their combative words. For me, it's can I keep my combative words in check? But for you, it might be how are you going to deal with other people's combative words or their desire to go to the gym and work out?
I was wondering if maybe it was gonna have the change was gonna occur in the underworld of my own psyche.
I think that that's more fourth house.
Oh, okay.
Because when we're talking seventh house, we're really dealing with other people and, how things appear in the outer world as opposed to in your personal life.
I see. Okay.
So one thing that might be recommended is, Tai Chi, dealing with others' energy and learning a way to, handle the flow of energy from other to self and back again.
Oh, it's been a long time since I did Tai Chi. That would be really nice.
I want to take a Tai Chi class. I've been wanting to since COVID started. I thought, oh, I need a way to flow with this energy better.
That's wise.
So let me know if you find any Tai Chi classes, especially
Okay.
online as winter approaches. But
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna scroll down and get to our next configuration. There's not that much here. I didn't put some of the other stuff in, even though there is, the black moon as well, and also the square. But the Pluto, Saturn, Jupiter stationing direct, that's a big old deal. I think we're all gonna notice this change over the next month.
God, I hope so. I hope it brings some momentum. I felt so stuck,
Exactly.
completely unmotivated.
Exactly. And I thought the Sabian symbols were pretty interesting here. Do you want to talk to those a little bit?
Yeah. Do you want to start with a new moon symbol?
Oh,
Or you want to stick
absolutely.
on
No,
Pluto?
go with new moon first.
Okay. Scroll up for it.
Okay. Oh,
No,
sorry. Go
scroll
to
down. I want to see the symbol that's written. Yeah, there you go.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. 13 Libra. Children blowing soap bubbles, which is such a nice, playful, dreamy thing to do. I feel like we have a lot of children again in the symbols this month. That which goes back to that like new beginnings and innocence and playfulness and soap
And
bubble.
Jupiter in Aquarius.
Yeah,
Jupiter in the house of children.
yeah. And Uranus still at children playing on the seashore.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I have this great picture of one of my kids when they were young, just like being ecstatic with a bunch of soap bubbles, just like pure ecstasy and joy, like frolicking in a field kind of thing.
And it's very air.
It is very air.
Libra and Aquarius, both air signs. The bubbles, floating up, as a kind of a physical representation of joy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that.
That's my first go-to thing. But then I also have this association with soap bubbles from being a theorist of mythology. Can I talk about it for a
Oh,
minute?
do please.
Okay. So there's this man named Lee Drummond who has this theory of myth and culture that he calls semiospace, and his description of it is to use soap bubbles. And he talks about myth and culture being like one and the same thing. Like myth being the like intellectual, mental side, consciousness side, and culture being the like physical manifestation of that. And he talks about the evolution of the human species as this like consecutive forming and reforming bubbles. And our cultural spheres are like these bubbles. And there can be bubbles inside of bubbles, and bubbles can collapse and form different bubbles, form smaller bubbles. They can shatter all together. They can merge together to form bigger bubbles. So whenever I see soap bubble stuff, I always think a little bit about this, like the evolution of humanity and the way that our perceptions are pretty fragile. And there's always this possibility of shattering illusions and shattering structures that felt contained and whole, but something can happen to just destroy it and another new thing will form.
That's so fascinating. As you say that, I think of Uranus and Neptune,
Yeah,
right? Because the Neptune is the soap bubble and the Uranus pops it,
right.
but even maybe on another level, though, I think it's so interesting, that analogy, because yeah, the bubbles we form are all illusory.
Yeah,
They give us a sense of containment, that without the sense of containment, we really can't do anything. It's kind of like there's a lot of research, on neurobiology, neuroscience, that says, we have so much to conceive of in our environments, that if we don't narrow our focus down to just very specific few things,
right,
we're overwhelmed. So,
right.
when the elephant in the room, or the research was actually talking about a gorilla in the room, that people didn't see the gorilla. 50% of the people, when asked to look for the red ball, didn't see the gorilla walk through the room, because they were focused on the red ball. They've been told to look for a red ball, so they didn't see a giant gorilla.
Yeah,
I think that somehow that speaks to how well the bubbles work, and again, how well they work both for us and against us.
right,
Because then we say, I'm in this bubble, I'm not in that bubble, and that bubble may pop, and then you're bubbleless, or you
right.
find yourself in another bubble. Or I don't know. I'm also interested in how it relates to. Recently, I heard Bill Maher talk about a new national anthem that's just for people of color, or for Black people, and instead of a new national anthem for everybody.
Yeah.
His belief, I think, fit with this bubbles, that no, wait a minute, we're all supposed to be within one bubble. A
Well, yeah,
national
no.
anthem is for everybody, one bubble.
Well, that's kind of like a typical Bill Maher white man thing to say.
It
Like,
is.
no, no, you need to be in my bubble that I created. Like, sure, there's a bubble of the United States, and then there's smaller bubbles inside of it that might represent different communities within the United States. But I guarantee you, there are people in Bill Maher's bubble that he would put in that bubble that are like, I got nothing to do with that empire.
Right, right. And that's what's so interesting, is whose bubble are we in, actually?
Right,
And what
right,
bubble do we think we're in? Because that's what really matters. And that's how they
right.
get shattered, when we find out, oh, I thought I was in this bubble, but I'm not in that bubble at all. I'm in this bubble.
Exactly,
Who is the
exactly.
author of that again? This is a mythology professor,
Yeah, he's a mythologist and anthropologist. His name is Lee Drummond.
Lee Drummond. Yeah.
And the book is called American Dreamtime, subtitle Toward a New Science of Humanity.
Ooh, that sounds like one worth
I love
reading.
that book. It's like one of my favorite books.
Yeah, very cool. I love the whole analogy. It's very
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah. I'll pull back our chart up again and look at the other
Thanks for my doctor digression.
yeah, it is cool. Helpful too. So we've also got, we've got the children blowing soap bubbles, and then we've got this Pluto, Saturn, Jupiter station. So, again, I'll just go through the configuration a little bit. The Pluto is regeneration, transformation, rebirth, power, subconscious. It's considered the generational planet because, it's in the same place for most people, within a generation, or at least a small generation. Saturn represents structure, represents sometimes where we can be stuck, where we're needing to slow down or have perspective. It also makes things realistic. It is the soap bubble. It's the edge of the bubble.
Right.
Just think that there's a bubble there and it also, it doesn't refer to the bubble breaking. It refers to the brakes, like on a car, like slowing down or stopping. Saturn can, put the screech to the whole thing. You're done. Hold on.
Mars is what would break the bubble.
Right. And Uranus, either one.
Yeah.
Jupiter, good fortune, expanding, growing, a magnifying glass. It can really put it can blow things up too much, meaning that we can have too much of a good thing sometimes. It makes larger, it may intensify things that we don't want intensified, but it is a benefic planet. So hopefully most of the time it's intensifying things that are positive and beneficial for us, and we use that wisely.
Mm.
And as these planets station, they present themselves, so we may see or feel them more. They kind of give a focused pause. They present a PowerPoint. So these Sabian symbols are maybe more impactful now at, where these are stationing than they are as they move forward or backward in time.
Mm-hmm.
A meaning, a transformation of government or authority, Pluto and Capricorn, leads to an enhanced or intensified Jupiter, changed or renewed structure, Saturn, for the group of people or for people in Aquarius. And these are wind changes, because these are air sign changes.
Right.
Just in the wind, reversing direction. So what do you think of the Sabian symbols of these?
Well, I mean, we've talked about that woman in a convent before. Like, it's possible it points to um, the spiritual power of the feminine, but it can also point to repression. So I don't know. That could go either way. I would lean towards the power.
Yeah, yeah,
And also a community, you know? Because a convent is a really strong community.
right. And also maybe a chance for introspection,
Right.
or when I think of going to the convent, I think of getting away from worldly things and getting more into things of a spiritual nature.
Right. Which is also what Saturn is portraying. To have a masked figure performing ritualistic acts in a mystery play. Mystery plays are spiritual plays. You know, they're performances of mythologies. Um, it's a little strange to see Saturn, the like structure and authority, in a masked stance. But there's also traditionally like a power to masking. You know, throughout the world, masked dances represent an other than human power. You know, and you wear the mask as the performer as a way to move beyond your humanity and embody something that is spiritual, a spiritual power. So we have Pluto and Saturn going direct, representing spiritual power, and that's pretty fucking cool.
Really is. And they both, we're looking at transforming structure,
Right.
using ritual in a traditional kind of a way,
Right.
right? I mean, both entering a convent, you're talking about doing ritual practices,
Yes.
and a masked figure doing ritual practices in a mystery play. Both of them imply, again, this change in structure using traditional, ritualistic ways to change the structure to perhaps the rug on the floor of the nursery.
Right? They're like both appeals to spirit. And maybe the appeal is like, can we get some comfort for us children in our human state?
Yeah, yeah, it's very interesting. I think of a woman entering a convent again is somebody who's probably giving up worldly goods.
Right.
Probably not gonna, they'll be, eating regular meals, but they're probably not gonna sleep on the softest bed or have, you know, you know, cushy cream scones or whatever. They're gonna they're gonna be living a more austere life.
Right.
And that is in the sign of where the transformation is happening. The woman entering the convent is where transformation is going on in the government and the structure. And I think that, I kind of have a feeling, and this comes back to my not being political at all about this infrastructure bill in the United States, because it's not just the United States, the whole world went through a real period of austerity.
Mm-hmm.
And that austerity has led to not just discomfort for, children not being able to have a carpet on the floor of the nursery, but maybe not having daycare or not having a transportation to get to the daycare or all that kind of stuff. So it seems like, on a broader level, this rug placed on the floor of the nursery is, a really positive thing for Jupiter to be highlighting for the people.
Right? It's very considerate. It's like a caretaking kind of thing coming from Jupiter. And
Yeah,
that's really lovely.
it really is. It's really lovely. A nice way of moving towards the future is as Jupiter stations and moves direct in this area, taking us forward with it.
Hmm.
I like it.
I do too. It's a good new moon.
Yeah, it really is. So anything else we want to say about this?
I think that's good.
I think it is good.
Yeah. Find some balance to your forward direction. Don't be afraid to engage in some ritualistic acts.
And
Call
use
on
your
the
energy
spirits to
wise,
help.
use your energy wisely.
Yeah.
Don't be combative with your words. Instead, find structured negotiations.
Mhm.
Find a way to use that Mars in Libra to do negotiation.
Yeah.
And beware of people who might have Mars afflicted and conflicted, so that we can keep our balance and our equilibrium.
Right.
So
Find your allies in the world of mystery
yes,
and
definitely.
try to give some comfort to each other.
Very good. Yeah, healing and comfort.
Healing and comfort.
Healing and comfort. Right on. All right, well, happy new moon, folks.
Yeah.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.